está diciendo para pasar su noche aquí. Y quiero decir algo más antes que empezamos, que español es mi segundo idioma y inglés es mi primero. Entonces, voy a decir disculpa antes porque yo sé que voy a hacer errores en español si necesito hablar español para explicarlo mejor, pero si quiere, puede ponerlo en el chat cuál error yo estoy haciendo y aprecio mucho si quiere como decir que, hey, la palabra es eso, no es eso, para mí a entender mejor por el futuro. Pero gracias mucho. Y yo creo que debajo puede ver, quizás hay un como button que dice captions y con este button que este va a dar las letras, subtítulos en español. Pero por la mayoría del tiempo aquí hoy, que yo voy a hacer esta presentación y en inglés. Pero si me quiere, yo puedo como poner un paso y darlo otra vez en español si puede entender mejor. Y me alegro mucho que hay mucha gente aquí hoy porque tenemos diferentes actividades y es mejor cuando hay gente que pueden como hablar y escribir y quiere como compartir su experiencia de su vida. Porque cuando yo hago presentaciones, me gusta tener como la otra gente que está hablando, como está como diciendo que su experiencia con diferentes temas. Entonces, me alegra que hay tanta gente aquí. Y gracias, y aprecio. Buenas tardes a todos. Y podemos empezar a como decimos, como hablar en el chat. Si quieren poner de dónde viene, de cuál ciudad o cuál lugar. En este momento yo soy en Miami Gardens.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Yanel, trabajo en el departamento de admisiones de Calvert. Quiero darle la bienvenida al seminario web de hoy. Gracias por acompañarnos. Me da mucho gusto presentarle a nuestro invitado de hoy, el profesor Dr. Colton Nguyen. Si tienen alguna pregunta, pueden escribirla en el chat o esperar hasta el final de la presentación. Por el momento, todos los micrófonos están en silencio hasta el final. Espero que disfruten la presentación. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Y bueno, gente, como explico antes, yo voy a hacer esta presentación en inglés, pero si me quiere repetirlo otra vez en español, me alegra hacerlo. Y no olvide para poner sus subtítulos en inglés o pues por español si puede entenderlo mejor. Y yo no sé si hay un setting que puede verlo muy bien en español, pero creo que si quiere puede hacer las letras más grande o más chiquita. Pero ser honesto contigo, yo no sé dónde está este settings. Pero creo que si puedes ver este como, es como una caja gris, quizás puede verlo así. All right, so let's get started, everybody. I'm really excited that you're all here. I will also try to talk a little bit slower for those of you who are using the subtitles or the captions, so you can see it. But if you do need help with seeing the subtitles or the captions, feel free to let us know in the chat so that we can help you out and see if we can make the subtitles or the captions a little bit bigger. Voy a decirlo una más vez, que si tiene problemas para ver los subtítulos o las capciones, porfa escribirlo en el chat si podemos cambiar los settings, si puede verlo mejor. Okay, so today's presentation is going to be all about making strategic decisions while you all are trying to create either a business or if you're trying to work on a project or even just set goals for yourself. I'm Dr. Colton Nguyen. Just a little bit about me. My first master's was in sports industry management. So with this degree, I learned how to make a nonprofit in parks and recreation as well as in sports. My PhD, I earned that in business psychology. So really thinking critically about the stakeholders, organizational leadership, making decisions that are going to be really great and help a business. And then lastly, my other education is in public health. So working with communities and trying to get them access to different resources. Things that I'm passionate about are social impact, nonprofit work, entrepreneurship, as well as working with communities and doing advocacy. Alrighty, so I'll ask this question both in English as well as Spanish so that we can all be on the same page here. I would like to know, why do you think you should use a strategic approach to any area of your life? Y yo voy a repetir este en español, si todo podemos entender, pero yo quiero saber por qué quiere o por qué debería usar una manera para pensar en un como lógico, estratégico por cualquier lado de su vida. So why should you use a strategic approach in any area of your life? And y'all are welcome to either raise your hand or you can unmute or you can stick it in the chat. But I love the engagement. I love the participation, and you're welcome to engage in whatever way you feel comfortable. But yeah, who would like to go first? What do you think? Why should you use a strategic approach in life? So for some people out there, I know some of us might be shy, that's okay. But for some people out there, right, using a strategic approach looks like trying to avoid problems later on. Quizás alguien quiere pensar bien antes que hacer una decisión para evitar problemas, ¿verdad? Arriesgas, right? People might try to avoid problems, risks. Quizás tiene en su mente que como un sentimiento que algo mal va a pasar y por eso quiere pensar bien. En este decimos como tenemos como gafas, gafas de buenas decisiones, right? It's like we're using like glasses on our eyes that we can try to put on a filter of how can we make better decisions. So something that, I really like to always talk about is data. ¿Qué tipo de data tienes? What type of data do you have to make better decisions? And we're going to learn a little bit about those so you could think through them. So one more time, si quieres usar el chat, um, te invito para usarlo para escribir si tiene experiencias sobre sus trabajos, sobre su propio negocios, cualquiera. So you're welcome to use the chat to write about any businesses or any life goals that you have while you're thinking about these models of decision making. So I'd like to know, do you have a business, a goal, or a project of passion that you're currently working on? ¿Tiene algún negocio, una meta, un proyecto de pasión que tiene? Alguna gente quizás tiene un negocio de cuidar niños, o quizás como a alguien le gusta cuidar perros o hacer como ropa, right? A lot of people have different types of businesses. Dog sitting, child care is a big business, making clothing. But at the end of the day, no matter what kind of business or a goal or a project you have, there's always a way for you to think through it, right? Make those critical decisions that are going to result in the goals that you want or going to result in the results that you're looking for. So if you have a business and you want to link it in the chat, I really, I invite you to and use this space for you all to connect with each other. Puede usar el chat para poner su enlaces de su propio negocio. Quizás tiene un perfil, un Instagram, un Facebook, cualquiera, si quiere compartir su negocio con el resto que está aquí. So feel free to use the chat, share your businesses. Love to see it. Okay, here's something else I'd like you all to consider. What is a benefit of understanding risks associated with decision making? ¿Qué hay un beneficio para entender las reglas que vienen cuando quiere hacer decisiones buenos, right? What do we think? Well, when you're making good decisions, right, and you're using points of data or data points, you're able to start thinking about what can we avoid? What didn't work out in the past, and what can we do going forward? What type of things would we like to see actually happen? What goals do we want to complete so that next time we can do it even better? And something that a lot of folks who are business owners might forget or they might not be thinking about is that all these little instances, right? All these little patterns that they had previously occurring, there was always a learning opportunity in that. And, this is kind of a little bit more philosophical, but I do believe that when something happens, for the best or the worst, there's always an opportunity to be learned, right? There's always something that you could take away. So one of the benefits associated with decision making is that obviously one, you understand whatever risks could possibly take place, but two, you're setting something up to be sustainable, right? You're trying to create something that you can repeat again. It's like an experiment. If you know that you sold X type of candy and you sold it on Instagram and it worked out and a lot of people bought it, and if you understand what you did to get to that goal, what did you do so that you can repeat that again? So you can keep selling that candy and keep making money and retain your clients. So a benefit of understanding risks associated with decision making is that you can take away what lessons you have learned and repeat it again. Yeah, awesome. Very good, Alexandra. All right. So here's my other question for you all. Have you ever had to make a tough decision with other stakeholders? Ser honesto contigo, yo no sé la palabra stakeholders en español, pero después yo voy a aprender. Y mi pregunta por ustedes es, ¿y en su vida, cómo puedo explicar esto? Have you ever had to make a tough decision with other stakeholders? Que hiciste una decisión con otra gente. Ese tipo de decisión era duro hacer, pero también necesitaba hacerlo con otra gente. Ya sabe que a veces el negocio, las decisiones grandes y graves puede ser bien difícil, pero especialmente si hay otra gente. So it can be really tough, right? When you're working with other people, everyone has their preferences, and you have to make these tough decisions. So if you want to put in the chat, you're more than welcome to tell us your story, or you can unmute and let us know if you've ever had to make a tough decision with other people. I'll give you an example. Let's just say you wanted to start a business and you couldn't decide yet. Do I want to rent somewhere? Do I want to buy somewhere? Do we just want to buy a mobile truck that will carry all of the equipment, right? If it's just your business, you're going to make your decision and live with the repercussions. But yeah, exactly. Like Alexandra is saying in the chat, everybody thinks different. If you're making a decision with, let's just say, a business partner, or you have clients that are used to driving to one location, it can really start to make, it can make things harder. It can make things more difficult. You might have to accommodate people. You might have to adapt. So making decisions with a lot of different people, yeah, it's hard to get everybody on the same page. It's hard to get everybody who agrees with each other. And today, we're going to walk through some exercises that ideally help you to unpack these things. Start to help make better decisions that are going to feel a little bit easier to do because they'll be informed. So, this is a little bit of a philosophical conversation or question. And my question for you is, why do you think bad ideas happen? Right? You all can be the judge of why you think that's the case. And my other question for you is, how do bad ideas turn into good results? So let me try to ask this one in Spanish. ¿Por qué piensa que malas ideas pasan? ¿Verdad? ¿Por qué este pasó? ¿Por qué como la cura ideas, como pasan? Especialmente con negocios. Why do you think bad ideas happen? Especially in the workplace or especially with businesses. And my other question for you es, ¿cómo cree que malas ideas después cambian o resultan en ser buenos resultados? How do bad ideas turn into good results? A lot of people in here might have different opinions about this. Some people might be very risk tolerant, meaning that they are really accepting of close to whatever happens, happens, and they're able to move past it and adapt. Whereas some people, which is totally okay, there's no right or wrong, might be very risk averse, meaning that they might get scared when there's not security, when there's no real consistent outcome demonstrating that something functions well. And either one is a different level of preference for everybody. But having that ability to start to adapt, change the way you think, can help you actually turn a bad situation into a learning opportunity. Cuando cosas mal pasan en la vida, tiene la oportunidad para cambiar este mal, quién sabe, pero este mal cosa y cambiarlo para hacer algo bueno, algo donde puede aprender una una oportunidad, right? You can always turn something bad into something good in most circumstances. So you can always at least take away something and learn. Okay. Yeah, on that we have some folks interacting. I love that. Yep, we have people saying that sometimes people make decisions and they don't think about the consequences. A veces también las personas toman decisiones sin evaluar consecuencias. We see that a lot, right? Sometimes we see this while people drive down the road, right? They're making U-turns in the middle of the street, and you're like, what could happen there, right? Maybe people are stopping, there's school buses, who knows? There's a food truck. A lot of people often make ideas and they're not thinking about what what the outcome could be. And I'm glad that you all are bringing this up because we're going to walk through how can you avoid that? Just making decisions for the sake of it, but actually making informed decisions. So while you're working with a bunch of people, this is something for you to consider. This is called a different model for levels of consensus. And you all might recognize this when you've had to work with other people, when you've had to get people all on board, all on the same page, and to make a decision together. Because realistically, if you make a decision, but other people don't agree with it, you're going to be in a position where the result that you want might never or ever take place. And being able to understand how to get people to an area of consensus where you can keep moving, even if they don't like the decision, is very important. So let's take a look at this. Number one says, I like it, I'm on board, and I can get behind this decision. So this is great, right? If you have a decision that needs to be made, we're renting this place. We're going to rent it for $1,500 a month. And everybody's like, good, I like it. I'm going to do it. That's fantastic. All your stakeholders are behind that decision. But things can get a little bit more complicated. Number two is that people may accept the decision, but they have questions about it, right? They're skeptical. They might not be all about it, but they're willing to go behind the decision. That's still good. They'll go through with it. You have buy-in at this point. Three, people are willing to accept the decision, but they don't have it as a preference. This is still okay because our stakeholders are still willing to be on board. People are still open to making the decision and doing what actions need to take place, and you're not necessarily going to be met with a lot of resistance. Now, here's where things get complicated. Four, I don't agree, and oh, okay, no, no, oh, here we go. Sorry, my dog's just playing with my cat. Four is they don't agree with the decision, but they're not going to say, I'm not going to go ahead with it. Four, still though, like I said, might get a little tricky because you are going to face some resistance. Five, that's the worst case possibility under the circumstance that you need to move forward with an action. But sometimes number five can result in good ideas happening. But for the sake of decision making, five, they hate it. I loathe this idea and I cannot accept this decision. That means you're going to have an issue down the road. People might not follow through with an action. People might not take on tasks. People might take a task and they decide not to do it. Miscommunication can happen. So when you are making decisions with different stakeholders, with different people that you work with, you're going to ideally want to identify people as having right because five, that's the bad part. That's where things get a little bit sticky because then things don't actually take place. So when you're going ahead and you're either managing people or you're trying to make decisions with other people, I want you to consider these levels of consensus. Like I said, you got your star fan. Number one, they love it. They can get behind it. They absolutely have this one as a preference. Two, they're willing to go through with it, but they have questions. Three, it's not their preference. They will still go through with their actions regarding the decision. Four, they don't agree with it. However, they are not going to be the one to say no. And five, the person saying no. They said this decision is bad. They're not going to go through with it. So you can be the judge when you decide to make decisions or when you decide that you're going to allocate a decision to be made. Are we at a point where at least we have four levels of consensus, right? At minimum, we need people to get behind this decision. They might not agree with it. They might not have made the decision, but at minimum, they're not going to say no. So keep this in mind. As long as people are in the top four, you're in a good position. If you have somebody in the fifth one, you have to work through it more likely than not. Because if you don't work through it, their no is going to most likely stay a no until there's a change. Alrighty. Great. And yes, thank you so much, everybody, for keeping the chat going. I love that. Y gracias a todo que sigue a usar la chat. Yo aprecio mucho. So right now, I want you to think of a time when you had to make an important decision, right? I mean, even if you want to just think about like, do I want eggs or do I want coffee? Who knows? But you had to make an important decision. What are some data points you considered? So one more time, I want you to think about a time when you had to make an important decision. It could be an even really big important decision. You wanted to go to school. You wanted to adopt a dog. You wanted to start a business. You applied for your license, right? These are major decisions. Adopting a dog, right, is a lot of responsibility. It's not just a one, two, three decision, most likely. Now here we go, right? This is the part that makes a lot of sense and that counts. What are the data points that you needed to review in order for you to get to that decision? So, I'm going to try to ask this one in Spanish. Yo quiero que piensa en un tiempo cuando necesitaba hacer una decisión importante, right? Una decisión que es grave. ¿Qué son algunos de los puntos de evidencia que estaba pensando en cuando hiciste esta decisión? Entonces, en su mente puede pensar en diferentes tiempos en su vida que necesitaba hacer una decisión bien importante, como adoptar un perro, ir a la escuela, quizás necesitaba como, quién sabe, hacer algo grave, hacer un nuevo negocio. ¿En qué estaba pensando? En las evidencias, los puntos de evidencias que vienen antes. Quizás pensaste en, ah, qué es el precio de esta cosa? Right? ¿Cuánto cuesta para hacer esta decisión? ¿Qué son las riesgas? Here we go. Hay gente en el chat que está hablando, que está diciendo su propia experiencia y me encanta cuando hay gente que quiere compartir este. Gente dice que necesita pensar en tiempo, descanso, dinero, que necesita desear, ¿verdad? Eso es importante para emigrar, right? Hay muchas diferentes decisiones que hacen en su vida cada día. Hay más importantes de otros, hay prioridades, pero siempre yo advoco para hacer una decisión con evidencia que viene antes, ¿verdad? Data points. What are the data points you need to consider? What are the evidence, right? The points of evidence that you should think about before making big decisions. No puede levantar un día y decir que, oh, yo voy a adoptar tres perros, ¿verdad? Ese es un loco idea, porque con tres perros viene como tres bocas que necesita comer, viene quizás tres chiquitos que necesita enseñar cómo usar el baño bien, ¿verdad? Necesita pensar en qué es la que puedo usar, que yo puedo decir con confianza, yo voy a hacer esa decisión. So for all my English speakers, I was just giving an example, right? You can't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to adopt three dogs, right? You have to think about things. You have to think about how much food it's going to cost. What are you going to have to do to train the dogs? Um, you have to think about the data points. What sacrifices are you going to make? So this is thinking critically, right? Thinking strategically on a small scale. But now let's start to look at models together. So this is called a SWOT analysis. SWOT, SWOT analysis. The S stands for strengths. The W stands for weaknesses. The opportunities, or O, stands for opportunities. And the T stands for threats. Some people say trends, which you could also look into. But I do think it's valuable to say threats because if you're making big decisions like adopting three dogs just out of the blue, you want to have an idea. What are these data points that you can actually point to that are factual and say, this is a good idea? I feel with confidence I'm going to make this decision today. So let's talk about strengths, right? ¿Qué es fuerte sobre su decisión? ¿Qué fuerzas tiene? Right? So we could think about if we're thinking about adopting pets and you're like, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? I want to adopt a dog. I want to adopt three dogs. Who knows? The strengths could be, well, you're great with animals. That's a strength. Your other strength could be, I have a vet who gives me a discount. Your other strength could be, I actually have dog food and toys because I already own two dogs, right? That could be considered a strength. Obviously, if this was your business, you're going to consider anything else that's applicable to being a good part of your decision-making process. You know, what's something that you could take advantage of, something that you might already have access to, but that's going to be a strength. Weaknesses are going to be the opposite. Something that you would consider that would be hard to make this decision. Something that you would consider that would be maybe holding you back, right? Yo creo que la palabra en español es que algo que hacer esa decisión como ser débil. I think the word is debilidades, pero yo no estoy seguro. So what is something that could potentially bring you down in this decision, right? Potentially in this case regarding the dogs is one. Raising three dogs is a lot of time. Also, your personal weakness when we're evaluating this, because it's internal, could be you don't have a lot of time. You work 12 hours a day and you have two kids. Now you have five mouths to feed. Two kids, three dogs, right? That's a lot of responsibilities. So your weakness, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, but it could be something that holds you back is that yes, you do work 12 hours a day. You can't raise this dog while working 12 hours. You also have two other kids, right? They're very demanding. You need to take them to school. Maybe another weakness is that you live in a two-bedroom apartment. Where are you going to put these dogs? That's your strengths and your weaknesses. Opportunities, oportunidades is going to be um what is something that you can take advantage of that's coming down the road, right? So an area of opportunity that you can still discover or still explore. Una oportunidad que todavía puede explorar. So you can still explore, let's just say, regarding the dog one, is that, well, you have a big backyard that's fenced in, right? That could also be a strength. But let's just say you have a big backyard that's fenced in, and you get somebody who's willing to walk your dog for free. Or you have a pet neighbor, or you have a neighbor who's into pet sitting, and they're willing to stop by because they live very close to you. So that's an opportunity, right? You can take advantage of that. That's helpful. But more likely than not, it's something that isn't necessarily within your control all the time. Your last up, there's going to be threats. This is the part where you evaluate your risks, right? So we have threats. Yo no sé cómo decir esa palabra en español, pero threats es como cuando algo que, verdad, puede lastimar su decisión o lastimar su meta o sus resultados. It's something that will potentially damage or harm or hinder what type of decision you're trying to make. So in terms of this dog situation that we were just describing, it could be amanzas. Thank you. I appreciate that. Amanzas. Una manzas. Las amanzas de una decisión. For example, you live in an apartment building that said your pet limit is one and you want three dogs. Well, that could be an issue. Now, two of your dogs can't come with you in your apartment. Another threat could be that, you spend a lot of money on groceries and you might only have enough money to pay for one dog or two dogs and your kids, right? That could be a threat because it's something that's really out of your control, but you could see it being damaging later on. So that would be considered a threat. So once again, I invite you to put if you have a business idea and if you have a goal that you're working on in the chat, because we can work on these things together. The idea of today is for you to actually be able to replicate this on your own time, and you could even do so in your head, right? You could do a SWOT analysis while you're driving. You could do a SWOT analysis while you're thinking about making a decision. Maybe you're stuck right now and you want to make a good decision. Do I want to go back to school, right? I'm even dabbling with that. And just, you could think about strengths. Well, you're really smart, right? You're really good at reading. That's a strength. Weakness could be that you sometimes get sleepy at night because you work all day. Are you going to be able to stay awake? But with every weakness, you could always meet it with an opportunity. Just because something's a weakness doesn't mean that it's going to be forever bad. It just means you have to adapt. That was what we were kind of talking about before, right? Adapting based off of data points. A data point you can use to support your opportunities is that, well, you might be sleepy, but guess what? You got a scholarship. Let's take advantage of that. You got $2,500 to go back to school. It's okay that you get sleepy, but guess what? Another opportunity is that you also live close to a Starbucks. You also could potentially get, who knows? You can get a cool cup for going back to school and they give you this nice looking, thermal cup. And now you can just put your coffee in there. Now you're just going to drink your coffee and go to school. It's an opportunity. And then, lastly, the threat could be that, well, Maybe your job is going to be making cuts, right? Who knows? Maybe you might get fired. Are you going to be able to do school while looking for a new job, right? This could just be something for you to consider. But when you make your decisions, you have to weigh everything together. Strengths, you're smart. You study really hard. You're really good reading. You're great. You're responsible. You do your homework. Weaknesses, yes, you might be a little bit tired. You're getting tired lately. And your other weakness could be that you might not have great attention. Who knows? But there's other opportunities that can override these weaknesses, and the opportunities can override threats. You know, you might get a scholarship. You might have more downtime than you've ever had in your life. If for whatever reason your job does fire you, now you can dedicate yourself to going back to school. You could seek out scholarships. Maybe your job might even pay for you to go back to school. I was talking about that earlier today, right? Sometimes jobs do reimbursement. There's areas of opportunity with every threat, and there's areas of strengths with every weaknesses. And I do personally advocate for you all to go back to school or continue school because it will benefit your future. However, when you're making these decisions, you're going to be the judge of your own strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. So, this could be also done for businesses, like I said, or any type of decision. We just use this example to weigh adopting dogs. We just weighed going to school. But you could even think about, should I pay $10 for organic eggs, right? Strength is you have nice cooking equipment. Weakness is that you are, potentially limited because of financial resources. The $10 for 12 pack of organic eggs. Opportunities is that you're going to cook a really good omelet and that you're going to have good high quality protein. And threats could be is that if you keep buying $10 eggs, you might not have enough money for other stuff. So this is you being able to do a SWOT analysis in real time in any type of decision that you're trying to make. Now, these are some things for you to consider. We have a SWOT analysis, right? SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, as well as you also have something called a SOAR model, which is going to be your strengths, your aspirations, your opportunities, and your results. Sorry, my dog's just playing with a new donut she just got. You hear squeaking. So here we go. Take a look at this, right? Strengths remain the same. Now, this is a little bit more optimistic. Your weaknesses could also become your aspirations. It could be things that you hope to achieve. What would you like to see happen? What are your goals that come after you've already engaged in something? Your opportunities remain the same. And then instead of threats, you think about results. What results do you intend on having happen? Right? Aspirations are kind of like your goals. Results are still going to be something that you intend to have be completed. All right. So if you're able to, even if it's just in your head, or you could do it on a piece of paper, I want you to do a SWOT or a SOAR model, right? Once again, you could use strengths, aspirations, opportunities, and results, right? You're going to identify these and write them down. It could be about your business. It could be about it could be about a personal goal you have, anything you want. Or obviously, you could do your SOAR model, or I should say your SWOT model, which is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So take about 5 minutes and write this down quickly. I'll be here and I'll even do one live on the screen while you all are doing yours. Okay. So I just made a mini one. Um, This is not personally a decision that I have to make at the moment, but I think it's a good idea for you all to see. And if you made one, you're welcome to put it in the chat what you created. But this is my SWOT model of should I adopt a dog, right? Strengths, I'm great with animals. I already have dog toys. A weakness is that, vet bills can be really pricey. I don't have unlimited money to spend on vet bills, spaying, vaccines, etc. Another weakness is that sometimes I have to be out of my apartment, right? I have to go work in the office. However, like I said before, there's opportunities that come with weaknesses as well as threats. An opportunity is I know a low-cost pet sitter, and my dog would also have a friend, and that's really great. But lastly, this is a threat. And this threat, I just thought of like with the dog in the apartment, but that might not be the case, because that could be a pretty big threat. But the other threat could be that you're having, a lot of dogs now, and that you can only really afford to pay for one dog for food. So yeah, this is just one example of a SWOT analysis, but I'm hoping that you all had the opportunity to do your own. And if you did and you want to share it with the chat, you're more than welcome to. And I'm sure that some of you have really cool businesses. I know that a lot of people here are very creative, you're very talented. And if you do have any businesses that you want to share your SWOT over, you're welcome to. Some of you might make a SWOT model and you don't have any ideas for one of them, and that's perfectly fine. The reason why we do SWOT models is so that we can identify risks. We can identify risks and we can identify more goals and more areas of opportunity. So if you don't have a SWOT model, or if you don't have a category that you couldn't fill out, don't worry about it, because you can always go back and add more. You can take things away and things can change. Okay, I'm going to clear this, clear all my drawings, and let's move on to the next one. Okay, so I would like to, what steps do you normally take to make a well-informed decision, right? ¿En qué piensa para hacer una decisión normalmente en qué pensaste bien? That's a little bit difficult for me to say in Spanish, pero creo que es qué pasos hiciste o haces normalmente para hacer una decisión que viene con mucha información. I'm not quite sure how to say well informed in Spanish. Como pensaste bien o sí, verdad, yo no sé cómo, pues, con mucha información. I learned Spanish conversationally, so I need to start getting my vocabulary from an academic lens. But maybe next time we meet, I'll be able to pronounce more things or say more vocab words. I just need to start booting up my Duolingo a little bit more hardcore with academia. But yeah, what steps do you normally take? Do you ask your friends? Do you research on Google? Do you ask ChatGPT? How do you make a well-informed decision? What are your steps associated with this? Here we go. Very good. Analizar las opciones, right? Analyze the options that you have. Think about what am I even looking at here? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this midway? What options do you have? Anybody else? Los pasos antes que haces una decisión. There we go. That's a great one. Evaluar gastos. Este es un bien, ¿verdad? Este es un bien manera para pensar antes que haces una decisión. Las finanzas. Este es verdad. No quiere hacer una decisión que luego necesite gastar un brazo y mano, ¿verdad? Cosas pueden ser bien caro y si no piensa antes, cosa más puede pasar. Quizás adoptas este perro y qué más, que necesita pagar por las cuentas de el vet, necesita pagar por sus vacunas, por su cama, por su comida, por quién sabe. So you need to make good decisions while thinking about all the finances, right? The vet bills, the vaccinations, the toys, the food. Yeah, right? You have to make adjustments. So let me show you a model regarding this. All right, this is, I didn't realize the quality would be like this, but here we go. And here we go. We have one more, problemas futuros, right? Future problems. So before you make a decision, you need to also ideally identify what kind of decision are you making? Are you going to be coming from a stance of being an entrepreneur? Un dueño de negocio, quizás está poniendo la lente a ser un o el filtro para ser uno dueño de negocio, o quizás está poniendo el filtro para ser como adaptar por algo, right? The filter that you're applying is going to be you're in adaptive mode. You could also consider maybe you're only in planning mode. Quizás solo está planeando. No tiene todavía un solo quiere planear. And last up, thinking about approaching things from a logical point of view or logically increasing, right? How you're going to make a decision. Quizás está en este como paso de solo pensar lógicamente para crecer en algo poco y poco, a progresar algo poco y poco. So before you make your decision, you're going to want to think about what kind of mode or what kind of filter are you applying before you make it? Are you the business owner? Are you adapting to something new? Are you planning something? Are you logically trying to progress through something? We see people in the chat putting in, yeah, you need to talk to some people before you make a decision. You need to think about the advantages and disadvantages. Very good, right? Evaluar ventajas y desventajas. Sí, claro. Ese todo está bien. Este que necesitas hacer antes que haces una grande decisión. Right? What are the pros? What are the cons? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? So here we have another model. It's a little bit extreme, but even if you don't necessarily agree with all the steps, you can at least start to think about what applies to you. What can you see actually being something that you're willing to implement? Y número uno, right? You need to identify the problem, identificar la problema. Number two, establish decision-making criteria. Necesita pensar en qué son las reglas, qué son las leyes que necesita por esa decisión. Like, what are the different rules of the road, the rules, the laws that are associated with it. Y este yo voy a explicarlo un poquito mejor en español. Cuando está haciendo este que se llama decision criteria, necesita pensar en su mente, que uno, estos son ejemplos. Uno, yo no quiero gastar más de 2,000 en esa decisión. Dos, yo no quiero hacer algo que necesite cambiar mi trabajo. Tres, yo no quiero hacer algo que yo no voy a ver a mi familia por medio de año. Estos solo son ejemplos. Pero cuando está haciendo una decisión en su mente, antes que haces esta decisión, necesita pensar en qué son las reglas antes que yo voy a hacer una decisión. Porque para tener un sistema, tú puedes seguir haciendo decisión mientras que todavía atrás en su mente tú tienes este como pensamientos, estas reglas, donde cada vez tú haces una decisión, ya piensas en sus reglas antes. Porque para hacer una decisión, sin reglas, sin pensarlo bien, sin pensar en las ventajas y ventajas, desventajas, quizás estás haciendo decisiones locos, estás haciendo decisiones que todavía no tiene suficiente información. So making decision-making criteria involves you being able to think about what rules do you have to set into play, right? Some of the examples I gave were you don't want to have to change your job, you don't want it to cost more than $2,000, you don't want to sacrifice time with your family. Different types of criteria can help you actually outline decisions for your future before you actually make them so that you're not always just making decisions left and right without thinking about the advantages or the disadvantages. So that concept I know can be a little bit interesting to play around with. So that kind of goes into number three. You're weighing your criteria. Which rule or which law is more important than the other? And then after you make this, do you have any other options? Right? We just talked about that in the chat. What are your other options available? ¿Qué más opciones tiene? Por número cuatro. Five. Now you're thinking about those options. Estas opciones son bien o son mal, right? Are these good options, bad options? You're thinking through it. Number six, right? You're gonna pick the best one if there is another option that you're considering. Elegir el mejor. Seven. This is still part of the decision-making process. You're going to go ahead with that decision. And then this, do not forget, last but not least, es la última, pero no es el menos, necesita evaluar su decisión. ¿Era bien o era mal? Right? You need to evaluate your decision. Was it a good decision or a bad decision? So I'll say it in English and then I'll say it again in Spanish. When you make a decision, you have to consider, What's the problem? What are you trying to address? Are there any rules that you want to put into play, right? Are you thinking about what rules are associated with the decision? What options do you have? Are there any other better decisions that you could make? Were those options good or bad? Did they work out well? Should you not consider your other options? And if you do, which one should you choose? Then you have to actually apply it. So now that you've thought about your options, you put together how you're going to actually implement this. And so you apply it. And then last but not least, once again, you have to look back, find a state for feedback. And from there, you're able to understand if it was a good decision or a bad decision. So one more time in Spanish, because I just want to make sure that we all are on the same page here. Para hacer esa decisión, el proceso, uno, identificar la problema. Dos, pensar qué son los leyes, que es uno de los como reglas sobre esta decisión. Tres, pensarlo. Hay prioridades de leyes de decisión que, por ejemplo, para sacrificar tiempo con su familia, es más importante esa ley que tú no vas a sacrificar tiempo con su familia. Ese es más importante a ti de gastar 2,000, ¿verdad? Entonces, va a pensar en mis leyes que tengo antes que hacer una decisión, que es más importante a mí. Y después, pensar, ok, en lugar de esta decisión, ¿qué opciones tengo? Cinco, ¿esas opciones son bien o son mal? Seis, voy a elegir la mejor opción. Siete, ya es tiempo para mí a aplicar la decisión. Y ocho, no olvides que yo voy a pensar en la decisión y también yo voy a empezar criticando mi decisión. ¿Qué era bien que yo estaba haciendo? ¿Qué era mal? ¿Qué parte fue mejor? ¿Qué parte que resulta en problemas? So you're going to think about all the ways that your decision worked out for you or didn't work out for you. Okay. So I would like it if you wrote down one goal and one action you would like to implement this week. Okay? You're going to write down a goal or an action you would like to do this week. And the reason why this is important, because I believe that when you write things down, you manifest it, right? With your body, with your mind, with your soul, with your spirit. If you're writing something down on pen and paper, even if you stick it in your phone, ideally you write it with your hands because there are studies that demonstrate that writing things down uses a different part of your mind. You're going to get one step closer, right? Even if it's just 1% closer to this goal. So take a few minutes now and write down a goal as well as an action that you plan to do this week. En este momento, toma tiempo para escribir una meta y una acción que está planeando hacer este fin de semana o esta semana, después aprendiendo ese diferentes modelos y conceptos de hacer decisiones de estratégico. Y yo creo mucho en que si está manifestando algo. Por ejemplo, si quiere como hacer algo en que está pensando en, como por ejemplo, un meta. Yo voy a ser bien en la escuela, yo voy a recibir un mejor trabajo, yo voy a recibir más dinero de mi trabajo que tengo en este momento. ¿Verdad? Este es un mente, este es una actividad de mente. Cuando está escribiendo este en papel, si tiene una pluma, está usando un parte de su mente que es diferente de escribirlo en su teléfono. Entonces, cuando está escribiendo este en papel, que yo voy a recibir más dinero, yo voy a encontrar un mejor trabajo, yo voy a irme por la escuela otra vez y yo voy a ser bien o ser un bien estudiante, está poniendo esta nueva idea en el mundo, está como literalmente como llamando con toda la energía en su cuerpo, en su alma, en su espíritu, que esta meta, esta idea es posible. Sí, es verdad. Tenemos gente usando el chat a decir que es importante escribir las metas. ¿Verdad? Es bien importante. Entonces, mira, esta es la parte número 2 que viene con esta actividad. Me alegro mucho si quiere hacer este conmigo. No solo va a escribir pero va a escribir este meta que tiene, ¿verdad? Va a escribir este meta que tiene en un papel y grabar un selfie. Grabar un selfie con su papel que dice esa meta. Entonces, tenemos dos cosas aquí. Uno, escribir su meta. Dos, grabar una foto con su papel que tiene su meta. Y tres, esa es la parte que es un poquito más complicado, va a poner en su teléfono una una fecha en su calendario o horario que dice cuando quiere, puede ser cumplir la meta o va a visitar otra vez esta meta. Entonces ya tiene en un papel una meta, quiero volver a la escuela. Y si tiene una acción, yo voy a escribir las escuelas y decir que cuánto cuesta ese programa. O quién sabe qué es su acción, pero es que quiero volver a la escuela. Mi acción es que yo voy a aplicar a una escuela. Va a grabar una foto y va a ponerlo en su teléfono. O si tiene como un horario al frente de su cara en ese momento, está bien. Pero va a poner una fecha, elegir una fecha buena. Decimos 6 meses luego, 2 semanas luego, un mes luego, algo más antes de un año que recomiendo. Y va a elegir esta fecha y poner una, una alarma, algo así, una alarma, una notificación que dice que hola, hola otra vez, estoy aquí con su propio selfie, su propio foto y su meta y mostrarse frente de su cara que tú hiciste esta meta, esta acción, hiciste una promesa que dice que tú vas a volver a esta meta, volver a esta acción y ver frente de su cara que tú quisiste hacer este, cumplir este. Obvio, no escribir una meta que es como tan grande que es imposible para cumplir, pero si puede escribir algo que siente seguro, siente con confianza que puede cumplir. Por ejemplo, vas a volver a la escuela y su acción es que yo voy a aplicar, que va a aplicar por una escuela. Vas a empezar buscando cuánto cuesta, vas a ir por los páginas, quién sabe, o cualquiera. Tu meta es yo quiero un mejor trabajo. Esta semana mi acción es que yo voy a aplicar a trabajos o yo voy a pedir de mi jefe a empezar pensando en crecer mi salario. Y no olvides, la otra parte, grabar una foto con su papel o donde escribiste su meta, ponerlo en su teléfono o frente a un horario, un calendario con una fecha, 2 semanas, un mes y poner o escribir algo en la capción que dice como que, como, como, señor Colton, Doctor Colton, por favor, no olvides esta meta, que tú hiciste esta promesa conmigo, que vas a cumplir esta meta. Y no olvides que tu foto también, ¿verdad? Ponga la foto al lado de este, yo no sé si puede como yo no sé cómo ponerlo junto, pero sí puede como copiar y después como meterlo en un espacio donde puede poner su propia cara, porque esta es la diferencia. Esa es una diferencia que yo entiendo, yo pienso, es que para sentir con decepción de alguien, este es duro. Para ver decepción en sus propios ojos de tu propia persona, este es más duro. Entonces, cuando tú estás buscando en su teléfono por una foto y en lugar tú ves tu cara riendo, sonriendo con este papel que dice tu meta que no cumpliste, vas a sentir un poquito mal. Entonces, este es este es la razón que estamos haciendo porque yo quiero ver que con todo su cuerpo, su alma, su espíritu, que está haciendo este meta y está literalmente poniendo los sistemas que van a resultar en la meta que tiene. Una más vez, no necesita elegir algo que es tan grande que jamás en la vida va a pasar, pero algo que verdad piensa que es posible. Ok, yo quiero empezar comiendo mejor. O mi meta es que yo no sé, yo quiero tener más músculos. O yo quiero, quién sabe, yo quiero bajarme un poquito yo no sé, con las calorías que yo estoy comiendo cada día. Bueno, mi acción es que yo voy a elegir en lugar de 3 galletas, uno o dos. Algo que puede hacer, algo que es más o menos fácil para ti a cumplir. Porque si tú eliges algo que es difícil, vas a sentir peor que no cumpliste. Y yo no quiero eso. Yo quiero que sientes bien después haces esta decisión. Entonces, elegir algo que crees que verdad es posible. All right. Qué bien. Hay gente que está diciendo que ya tengo mi meta. Qué bien. All right. Entonces yo asumo que todo el mundo aquí tiene su meta, ¿verdad? Escribiste, ya guardaste su foto, ya escribiste en su horario que en una semana, 3 semanas, un mes, este va a pasar. Recuerda, yo no estoy refiriendo de un año, 2 meses, una semana, o puede poner como que, y el fin de agosto voy a terminar esta meta. All right. Una más cosa, una bonus. Me alegra que tiene su foto y su fecha. Qué bien. El bonus de este es como paso número 4. El paso que es como bien intenso. Si tiene, si tiene, ¿verdad? Como quieres, como se llama, como accountabilidad, que deberás saber que está, decimos, subiendo el porcentaje que ese va a pasar. Si quiere, puede mandar toda esa información, su meta, su foto, su fecha, a alguien con quien confiar en, que puede confiar en. Quizás a su niña, su niño, su madre, su padre, un profesor si quiere, puede mandarlo a mí si quiere, pero yo creo que puede encontrar a alguien que va a decir quizás en un mes que, hey, ¿qué hiciste con su tiempo? ¿Cumpliste la meta que dijiste que quiere hacer? Entonces, cuando tú puedes encontrar como una pareja de metas, esta persona a veces puede ayudarte, puede asistirte con su meta. Quizás ellos solo van a descubrirte o llamarse en el teléfono o decir que, hey, Bárbara, recuerdo cuando hiciste esta meta, tú mandaste tu foto, me mandaste este papel con la fecha. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Cumpliste o no? Entonces, esta es la parte número 4. Si quiere hacerlo en una manera que es un poquito más cierto. Pero qué bien, me alegra que todo tiene su meta, su foto, su fecha. Qué bien. Y si quiere, yo voy a poner mi información en el chat. Puedes mandarlo a mí. Yo no tengo, yo no puedo como hacerte la promesa que yo que yo voy a recordar cuando es su fecha, pero al menos ya tenía alguien con quien tú puedes confiar en. Ok, déjame para poner mi, quiero saber que todo está bien aquí. Ok, qué bien. Alright, yo voy a ponerlo en aquí. Entonces, como te cuenta, quizás yo no voy a recordar cuándo es su fecha, pero al menos yo puedo ayudarte a recordar que tienes una meta. Ok, recuerda otra vez, antes que tú cumplir tu meta o antes que tú haces grandes decisiones, pensar en estos pasos. Otra vez, pensar bien en las lentas. ¿Quién soy cuando estoy haciendo decisión? ¿Soy un dueño de negocio? ¿Estoy tratando de adaptar por algo? ¿Estoy solo planeando? ¿O estoy pensando en algo lógicamente? Y algo más, de aquí, este es tu SWOT model. Las fuerzas, que hace este más débil, oportunidades, y esa es la palabra del día, porque esa es mi nueva palabra por hoy. Amén, amenazas, amenazas, amenazas. Bueno. Entonces, pensar duro en este modelos, porque antes tú piensas en antes que tú tomas el tiempo para hacer su decisión, tú vas a tener más confianza. La más que haces este modelos, la más va a pensar usando otras partes de su mente, su cráneo, para hacer decisiones que son más duro, más rápido. Tenemos una frase, es una frase de psicología. Es como que mueva más lento para morar la próxima vez más rápido. Move slowly to move quickly. Something like that. Oh my goodness, me encanta. Tenemos un foto en el chat. Qué bien, qué bien. Quiero ver, ¿qué dice? Voy a bajar, ok. Voy a bajar 10 libras antes de final de año. Cecilia, mira este, es perfecto. Perfecto. Y yo creo en usted. Es posible. Es posible. Ya tenemos su cara, tenemos su fecha, tenemos su meta, su puede. Todo es posible cuando usas su mente. Y algo más de este es que con la meta que escribiste por la gente, mira, obvio todo en el mundo es posible y nada es por, es por siempre, es las frases que tengo. Pero cuando escribes esta meta, si no llegas en 100% que eres su meta, al menos empezaste. Esa es la parte que la mayoría de gente tiene problema. Es que hay mucha gente en este mundo que tiene metas. No hay tanta gente en este mundo que está cumpliendo o está empezando sus metas. Esta es la parte que necesita pensar en. Por ejemplo, hay mucha gente que dice que, "Ay, yo quiero bajar pesos, libras, y jamás está en el gimnasio. Pero al menos si tú caminas en el gimnasio 2 veces cada semana, estás haciendo algo que es más y mejor de la otra gente que no tienen ninguna otra acción para llegar por el gimnasio, la gimnasio al gimnasio. Entonces, si está empezando su meta, ya está literalmente a frente, encima del el resto de la gente. Entonces, qué bien. Ah, otra gente está diciendo otra cosa aquí, me encanta. Qué bien, hay gente que está dando el aplauso. Tú puedes. Es posible, todo es posible cuando usas su mente. Y recuerda, el primer paso es para empezar. Right. ¿Verdad? No corres como tan rápido para pensarlo, pero pensar en sus modelos, pensar en cómo puedes pensar y empezar pensando en qué son las ventajas y desventajas. Ventajas. Alrighty. Estoy orgulloso en ti. Recuerda ¿verdad? Que cuando nadie más está diciéndolo, la voz dentro de su cabeza necesita escuchar que estoy orgulloso en ti. Recuerda porque sin esta voz, yo sé que puede ser difícil, pero recuerda que hay mucha gente en este mundo que está apoyándote, todos sus seguidores, sus fans, está siempre a frente de ti, mostrando su apoyo, pero la persona más importante es que tú puedes reconocer que estás orgulloso en usted. Ok. Esa es una de las últimas actividades que yo tengo por ustedes. Voy a ponerlo en el chat. Upsis. Y creo que puede como dar un clic y también puede leerlo cuando tienes tiempo. O si quieres leerlo en este momento, está bien. Y me gustaría si después lees que puede aplicarlo a su meta. Yo puedo mostrarte qué es. Es una otra manera que es como un framework para hacer decisiones. Por aquí, mira. Ese es casi que estamos refiriendo. Ah, déjame ver, yo no sé si puedo ponerlo en español, ¿verdad? Ah, quizás. Translate. Yo no sé. Ah, translate to. Oh. Ah, qué bien. Que está, ¿verdad? Cómo puede. Ah, no es aquí. Puede usar esta información en el futuro cuando está haciendo decisiones por su negocio, por sus preferencias, por cualquiera. Puede leer pensar un poquito más como hondo y que necesita pensar en los datos. Ah, mira, va a va a enseñarme nuevas palabras. Pensar en sus datos, por aquí. Pensar en qué es su objetivo. ¿Mm? Es un paso, es una prueba. Estábamos refiriendo, priorizar, Prioridades. Mira, yo entiendo que este es mucho para hacer por un día y este es mucho para empezar a hacer si no en tu vida no tenías más experiencia con este. Yo entiendo este, pero algo que necesita recordar es que todo es posible cuando tú empiezas y poco cambias cosas. Entonces, quizás más en su vida tenía el tiempo o espacio para escribir sus metas y también pensar en sus metas en una manera que es de sus fuerzas y sus habilidades, todo este. Pero ya tiene este. Entonces, si de esta presentación solo está recibiendo uno o dos como cambios, ¿verdad? Está perfecto. Y sí, yo sé, este es un poquito largo, pero puede ver una manera para hacer decisiones que va a ayudarte luego. All right, qué bien. Entonces, con ahora de su tiempo, y yo quiero saber que si tiene otras preguntas por mí. Puedes escribirlo en español o en inglés. Y, ¿verdad? Aprecio, y yo aprecio todo el mundo que está mirando este de su casa, que está mirándolo en español o en inglés y está pensando en, "Ah, wow, este hombre está cambiando, cambiando, cambiando. Y disculpa, quizás estoy como corriendo, corriéndose un poquito loco, pero sí. Si quiere escribir algunas preguntas. Y yo creo que quizás la próxima tiempo vamos a tener una clase, quizás es la próxima spring, pero no estoy seguro. Pero si quiere buscar por mis clases, me llamo Dr. Colton Nguyen y yo hago clases aquí en negocio y ley de negocio y valores de negocio. Y gracias a ustedes. Y yo voy a dar en este momento esa presentación, pero está en inglés. Pero si quiere la presentación, yo voy a darlo en este momento.